I tried Instagram automation for over 200 days. So 200 days ago, I was a complete beginner. And since then, I've made enough to buy my dream car. And I've done it by running, building, and growing these faceless pages on Instagram. And so here are 4 lessons that I wish I knew when I was a complete beginner. So the first lesson is don't worry about monetization as a beginner when you're starting out, right? So when you're starting out with a brand new page. You don't even want to worry about monetizing your page. Don't even think about it. So here's why. If you're in this situation on the left where you have 0 followers or 5 followers or 10 followers or even a couple hundred followers and you're just starting out, don't even think about monetization because you could have the best monetization system in the entire world put together. Whether you're selling a digital product, it could be a really great digital product, structured perfectly, perfect pricing, perfect copywritten words on the page to sell people in, good conversion rate. It could be perfect. But if you drive no traffic there, the point is you're going to make zero money, right? You're going to make no money at all, pretty much. If you drive 10 views to your page and it's a $20 product, you're not going to make any money with that, even if it's a really great product that converts well. On the other hand, if you have like a good amount of followers, it doesn't have to be 50,000 or 100,000 or anything like that. Even if it's so little, like even just something like 5 or 10,000, right? Which you can get to in your first couple weeks or month of posting if you're good enough. If you have even a mediocre monetization system or one which isn't that great there, you can monetize that and actually make money with it. You're not going to make a crazy amount with it, but if it's a mediocre monetization system, but if you have the followers there and the traffic that you can drive, even if you don't have the best monetization system in place, you can still make a good amount of money. And here's the mistake I see a lot of beginners making. A lot of beginners, when they go into it, they want to just instantly make money. They're like, I want to make $10,000 in my first month. And so when they start out as a complete beginner, they try to go ahead and grow the page and also monetize it at the same time when they're starting out. And you got to understand, when you're splitting your time and energy across those two different things, you're diminishing the results which you'll be able to get from either of those, right? And when you're starting out, you need to just put all your time and energy into the growth, because if you try to do both at the same time, you'll almost never end up actually successfully growing your page, since you're putting so much time and energy into monetizing it, right? And then obviously, if you never grow your page, you're never even going to monetize it to make money from it at all. So when you're starting out as a complete beginner, put that time and energy into improving your editing style and becoming quicker with it and increasing your volume and researching new styles, reaching out to accounts and asking for advice, things like that, right? Put your time and energy into growing your page first, before you worry about the monetization. By the way, throughout this video, if you have any questions, leave a comment below. I try to reply to every single one. Also, drop a like on the video. So the second lesson is that not every page is monetizable. So I didn't necessarily experience this problem myself, but a lot of beginners who are going into Instagram automation, they experience this. And so you need to understand, compared to other platforms, not every page is monetizable. The main thing that comes down to it is, if you're posting content like this, all I'll say is you're kind of cooked, right? Like, you might as well start a new page in a new niche or a new topic or something. If you're posting videos where it's like meme videos or funny, relatable videos, or you're running a page like this, it's very, very hard, almost impossible to monetize one of these pages. And that's why you see a lot of these pages, which you might follow on Instagram, they promote some OnlyFans girl, or they do some random merch sales, which nobody ends up buying. I mean, I remember reading about it. I don't remember the specific details because this was a while ago, but I remember reading about it where there was this page which had 2.3 million followers, and it was kind of like a meme page, and they tried monetizing with selling t-shirts, right? Like merch of their page, brand and stuff like that. And I think it was 27 sales or something like that. It was like a very low amount, which they did on launch day, which, for having 2.3 million followers, to only get 27 sales, on like a $15 t-shirt, is not that much money at all for how many followers you have and how much you should be making for it. So you want to keep this in mind long term. I don't remember the exact details of it, but if you know where that's from, I'd love if you could tell me or something. But you want to just keep in mind, in the back of your mind, when you're starting out, would this page eventually be monetizable? Now, I know that sounds like I'm contradicting the point I just made, right? I just told you, don't worry about monetization when you're a beginner or when you're starting out. And what I mean is, don't put time and energy into monetization. Don't like build digital products and stuff like that. But you should just consider, especially when you're choosing your niche and you're choosing what topic you're going to be posting about. Okay, should I post about this topic? Because eventually, when I build a big page on this topic or this niche, will I be able to even make money with it? right? So you should just consider that. Don't like make it the whole focus, but consider that, because you don't want to build a big page and then not be able to make money from it. It really sucks, doing that. And I see a lot of people doing that, by the way. So don't get so caught up on like the content style or the way you're editing your videos and stuff like that. What it all comes down to is the topic or the niche you're posting about. And the most important aspect for the monetization is your niche educational, or does it have some educational aspect to it, which you could do? So for example, if you look at like a lot of meme pages, right? So this page on the right, by the way, this page is a very successful page. If you look at a lot of meme pages and this page here on the right, they post like the same kind of content, the same formats, the same editing styles, the same kinds of content. It's very, very similar across these pages. However, what's different is that this page is posting about a topic or a niche which is educational. They're posting about drop shipping, right? So people want to make money online. It's like, okay, you can make money online with drop shipping. That's what this Faceless page is posting. This Faceless page on the right here with 5 million followers, I'm not even joking when I say this. I know this sounds unbelievable, right? But this page has made over $29 million. That was the last time I checked and looked into it was like a couple months ago. So it's probably even more than that. Yeah, I've made a full video on my channel, by the way, breaking down this specific page. But they've made over $29 million. Now, there's some, like I said, there's that page with 2.3 million followers who they launched a merch brand, t-shirts or whatever, and they made like 27 sales. So that just shows you it's not about the millions of followers. What's most important is the topic and the niche that you're posting in, right? And so you want to make sure that when you're starting out as a complete beginner with it, you want to just keep in mind, okay, eventually, right, I'm going to put all this effort and time into building this page. I want to make sure that once I do get to the point where I build a successful page, that I will be able to actually monetize it, right? So that's the second point. The third one, by the way, if you're interested in starting and growing your own page, I have a private community, has courses, training videos, access to me with calls and stuff like that, community. If you want to join, it's the top link in the bio. You can click there and then join. But do it once you're done watching this video, because the third point is that monetization is harder on Instagram. Now you're like, what? It doesn't sound right, right? Because most people online, when they're telling you about a business model, they try to make it sound super easy and like, oh, this is going to be so easy to make $10,000 or whatever. I'll just be straight up honest with you. Monetization is hard on Instagram, but the benefit of that is that monetization is hard on Instagram, but it's more lucrative, right? Now, when I say it's more lucrative, it just means you'll make more money with it, right? Compared to other platforms. So when it comes to other short form content platforms, I'll tell you right now, I've done mostly all of them, right? I do it mostly Instagram now. That's what I focus on. That's my main thing. And I've done a lot of TikTok in the past. That's what I actually started out with. YouTube, I did a little bit of YouTube, but what I did on YouTube was mostly long form content. It was never shorts, and I never really did it for that long. So I don't have much experience in that. But when it comes to TikTok, for example, I can tell you right now, I've had a lot of experience with TikTok, right? So I built a bunch of successful pages like this one on TikTok, 190K followers. I had another one, which I had 500K followers. I had another one, which I still have at 320K followers. Another account, 150K followers. Another one, 90K followers. A couple others, I've sold most of them. Some of them I still have and stuff. And you can verify. I even have one video of me posted on this page just to verify if you want. But I've done a bunch of big pages with TikTok, and I've made a lot of money from it, right? So these were some of my best days. These were single days, right? 3,000 and 4.1K, and that was with TikTok Shop Affiliate. So I've made a lot. These are, by the way, are my best days. These are not my average days, right? If this was my average days, I'd be insane. But these are my best days. But I've made a lot with TikTok, like over 6 figures with it. And so I'm not saying this to flex. I'm saying this to show you I have experience with both. I've made a lot of money with both, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this, right? And I'll tell you right now, if you're posting on Instagram and you don't know how to monetize, then and you're not making any money, then it's not as good, right? But if you know how to actually figure out a monetization system, like maybe you're going to sell a digital product or do a newsletter or do affiliates or whatever it is, sponsorships or whatever it is that you're going to promote, if you know how to actually do it well, which is not super complicated, by the way, you'll make a lot more money. Now, the reason for this is because with TikTok and YouTube, right, you got to think about this logically for a second, right? With short form content on TikTok and YouTube, the reason it's simpler, right? It's not as much of a complicated system or whatever. It's simpler because on TikTok and YouTube, you just upload your video and you get paid for your views. Oh, your video got 1 million views, we're going to pay you this much money, right? And so it's simpler because of that. Whereas Instagram, they don't have a direct monetization system where they just pay you out for your views or anything like that, right? Compared to the other platforms. But you also got to think about that. If you're posting onto TikTok, right, and you get a million views, that money is coming out of TikTok's pocket. So they're not going to pay you as much, right? Because like I said, they're not just going to pay you, they have a limited budget as well, right? Even though there's some massive company, when there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people trying to make money with that program as well, they're going to limit it, they're going to add a bunch of restrictions about qualification videos and all this kind of stuff, right? So when I first started on TikTok, I was like very early. I was one of the first people I was in like that first group of people who really started doing the monetization program in like I was literally like the first week it came out I started doing it, or the first month or so. So I was very early in on it. And when I first started, when I was very early in on it, it was great, right? Like on TikTok, for example, I would get paid a million views, right? I would get a million views and I would get paid maybe $1,000 to $1,200. Right. And it was great, dude. I was like, dang, this is awesome, making a load of money with this. And then what happened, right? I started making a lot of money with it. Other people started making a decent amount of money with it too. And so a bunch of people started doing it. And so because of a bunch of people started doing it, TikTok obviously they have a limited amount that they can pay you. And so what did they start doing? They started limiting how much they're paying out to people. So they added a bunch of restrictions and qualifications and things like that. So for example, like they added a thing where you only would get paid for views where they watched a certain duration of your video, which on average would be like 50%. So you got a million views, but you'd only get paid for half of those. And then they started dropping RPMs like crazy, which is how much you're getting paid per thousand views. They, did a bunch of other stuff. They'd start restricting a bunch of accounts. They started adding a bunch of qualifications, and your posts have to be original content and things like that. So just making it much harder to do. So it literally went from when I started out, like TikTok would pay you get a million views, they pay you $1,000 to $1,500 sometimes if you had a really good RPM. It went from that, like $1,000 to $1,500 per million views, to down all the way, for me at least, to like literally on one of my pages, Sam Sulek Talk 6, it would literally be like $100 per million views, sometimes even less, like 100 to 150. So literally they cut it by like 90%, right? The earnings there. And so the reason that you don't experience this on Instagram is, let's say you're selling a digital product on Instagram, right? Like a $10 digital product, or a $50 one, or a $20, $30 one, whatever it is. When you're making your money, it's because customers are paying you. It's not because Instagram is paying you out from some monetization system. And so then you don't have to worry about all these qualifications and your money getting restricted and your RPMs dropping and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why this has a lot more potential, because on TikTok, whenever your page started to do too well, they would restrict it. They would disqualify you from the program for that month and take away your earnings. Like literally, they took away one month $13,000 in earnings of creator rewards that I earned from my page because they disqualified me from the program. So it's simpler to do it on these other platforms, but long term thinking, you're not going to make nearly as much with those other platforms compared to Instagram. Now you can still post on those other platforms, and I actually might start doing this, just taking the content I'm posting on Instagram and just throwing it onto TikTok and YouTube Shorts, for example, just to build those audiences and maybe make a little bit with those. But the main focus should always be on Instagram, right? And like I said, so I'll literally show you, right? Like I said, you have to figure out your monetization system, sure. But this was me, right? And you can see here, this is like a real screen and everything. This was my very first week when I figured out my monetization system, because before I was just affiliating something for Tate, his Hustlers University course thing, and maybe doing like a promotion every now and then if someone reached out to me and asked for it. But you can see here, right, like 5K, one payout, and then also that same week another payout of 1.5K. And this was in the first week, by the way. This wasn't like in a month or 2 months or 3 months of doing it. This was in the first week. Now I already had a big page, so that's obviously a huge advantage. But point is, like, if you get a million views on Instagram, and this, by the way, you can this is 9.5K in 1 week, technically 16K if you had the pending revenue. But point is, right, if you figure out how to actually monetize on Instagram, you'll make a lot more over time, right? So like I said, for example, if you get a million views on TikTok now, you might get paid like 100 to 150 bucks. Depending on your RPM, there's a lot of range there. But on the other hand, if you get a million views on Instagram and you do it right, you could, for example, let's say you drive 20,000 people you can do it, right? With a million views, you could drive 20,000 people to a site. Let's say you drive those 20,000 people to a newsletter. You could literally, from those 20,000 people, earn, I would estimate, $4 or $5,000 potentially. Or you drive them to a digital product that converts well. You drive them to a digital product that converts at 1%. That's 200 sales. 200 sales at $15. That's 2,500. Correct me if I'm wrong on the math, but you get the point. You get a million views on Instagram. You could be as a promotional post. You could be earning a couple thousand there, compared to TikTok. Now, the next lesson, which is this is really really important, is that it's going to be harder when you're starting out, especially if you're doing it by yourself. So if you're like, I'm just going to go and start by myself, I'm just going to learn it by myself, which is totally fine, by the way. That's actually how I did it when I started. I pretty much just learned it myself from trial and error, but it will take a lot longer when you do it like that, right? When you know, just try to learn it by yourself and go off on your own road. It will be harder when you're starting out, but this is because when it comes to just posting content online, but specifically I've seen this a lot on Instagram, the rate of growth is exponential. So what that looks like is like you might spend a bunch of time going from 0 to 50,000 followers, 10 months on that, but then suddenly your page blows up and you gain like 500K followers in the span of a couple months. I've seen that happen a lot of times with pages, right? And for example, this one guy who I'm helping one-on-one, he's in the community, and so he has 150,000 followers now. And when he first started out posting if you want to verify, his page is called Elite Growth, by the way. When he first started posting, he was getting on his videos like a couple hundred views a video. You can scroll back to his first ever post, you'll see his videos were averaging like 200-300 views per video, and that was pretty much it, right? Couldn't break out at that point. And then he, started trying new editing styles, upgrading his quality in his videos, trying, refining his scripts, which he was using on his videos, all these kind of things. And obviously, what that did was, right, made his content better. Very simple. And what happens if your content better? It'll get pushed more. And so he was getting those like couple hundred views, and then instantly he had this one post. You can go look at it. It got, I think, 620-ish thousand views. Went ultra viral for the size of his page. And then after that, from that point on, like he was consistently banging minimum 5,000 views. So he was banging like 10 to 15,000 views per video consistently, and getting the occasional 100, 200,000 views on his videos. So you want to just keep it in mind when you're starting out. The rate of growth is not linear, because when it comes to just life in general, when you're trying to become better at something or learn something, most things, the rate of growth is linear. So it's like you're right here and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this next step. For example, if you want to start playing basketball, right? You're playing basketball. Every day you practice, you just become a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better the next day. Whereas on Instagram, you're posting, you could post one video, get 200 views, the next video get a million views. It could happen, right? And so that's the way where it's like all the time which you put into it has a compounding effect, where over time, because when you're posting on Instagram, it's very repetitive what you're doing. Every single day you're making the same kind of videos, you're doing the same thing with your editing, you're posting them the same way. If you're monetizing, you're doing a newsletter, you're sending out the same email, whatever it is, you're doing the same stuff again and again and again and again, day after day. And so because your video could get pushed to 100 million people or to 2 people, there's a lot of different varying outcomes which you could get. And so that's why the compounding effects builds up to the point where you reach kind of that next level where it's like, okay, now I can produce content at this level or this quality. And then if you're consistently now doing it at that quality, your video just boom, take off like that. So I know that might sound complicated, but for example, one of my pages, I was averaging like 2 or 3 thousand views a video. Sometimes if my videos did well, I'd get like 10,000 views. And then I became, obviously, over all that time I'd spent editing videos, I'd become better at editing content. So I knew how to edit more high quality, more complicated style videos and things like that. And so then what happened was, all of a sudden I tried this new style, right, which was a little bit more complicated editing, took a little bit more time to make the video and stuff. But I tried this new style, and then this new style of videos I tried on my page. Literally, the very first video with that new style got 70,000 views, and the very next one got 1.1 billion views. So it's things like that where you could be posting for a decent amount of time, or you could make a lot of posts which are at this level, and then boom, you could take off just like that. So the same thing with just short form content in general. So when it comes, like for example, with my first pages ever, which I did, like my first ever pages, it took me about 3.5, almost 4 months to make my first dollar online, right? And then that first month I made $900. Second month I made 2,000. I made 2,000 again. Then I did I believe it was 5,000. Then I think I dropped down to 3,000, and then I think it was either 9 or 11,000. But the point is, like in the first 4 months, I made $0, and then from the point I made my first dollar to about 4 months later, I made my first 10K a month with that, right? So you want to just keep in mind that the rate of growth is going to be exponential for you. So like I said, once again, this isn't for everyone, but if you're interested, I have the private community where I teach all this and help you out with this. You get courses, calls with me, my DMs, access to me, all that good stuff. If you're interested, you can book a one-on-one call with me. We'll see if you're a good fit. Just click the link in the bio. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you found this useful.